It's a bell in the worship order of worship. It's a gong when I do it. We recognize that CVUUS gathers on land seized from the Western Abenaki people by European colonizers. We respect the Abenaki's spiritual relationship to the land and the waters of the Champlain Valley. We are committed to building a peaceful and just relationship with them and to promoting knowledge about their history and culture. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to CVUUS, Champlain Valley Unitarian Universalist Society, a church of helping hands, loving hearts, and open minds. Remember, we said that all the time. A church that sustains a liberal religious tradition, aspires to be visible and active on behalf of social justice and environmental responsibility, nurtures and empowers us all at all ages on our spiritual journeys, and reaches out to the larger communities of which we are a part. Today is May Day, the first day of the best month of the year. It's a whole month of spring, all 31 days. March has 3 weeks of winter officially, and the last 10 days of June are summer. How beautiful it is today. We still encounter, of course, the vagaries and vicissitudes of life and the intimations of mortality, but we do so in May in such an inspiring natural setting. The green boat that we sing about. I hope you find a way to celebrate May today. We're delighted you have chosen to spend some time with us this morning, both those of you here in the sanctuary and those Zooming in. It's never a bad time to check your phone. Make sure it's in worship mode. If you're visiting, please sign the guest book in the foyer so we can send you news of activities and events that enrich our time together. And come again. Our services are quite different from week to week. I'm Carl Lindholm, a member of the worship team, and I will be assisting today our guest minister, the Reverend Mark Orton, Dean of Religious Life at Middlebury College. There's a note in your order of service about the various roles that position entails, also in Wednesday's blast. Thank you, Mark, for joining us today. If you have a milestone or a passage that you would like to share today, do fill out a yellow card and place it in the basket during the offering. Yellow cards are right out there by the entrance. For those of you online, please use the chat function to communicate with us. At the end of today's service, we'll have our coffee hour downstairs as usual, but also a discussion of next year's budget. Doug, would you tell us just briefly about what's happening? Doug, right close to your mouth.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hey, third time's the charm. Every year the board tries to give the congregation a chance to have a sense of the process by which we're developing a budget so that we don't have to do all that on the day of the annual meeting. We're going to do that right after the service today. We're going to share some information with you and answer questions that you might have. So we'll be doing that, and it's available on Zoom as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. There are many pathways to connection here at CVUUS, activities and events in addition to Sunday services that bring us together as a community. They're listed in today's order of service. Do check them out. And they're amplified in last Wednesday's blast. I'll only mention that at the end of the service, you might check in with Marnie Wood and Dinah Smith in the foyer, and they will be registering people who would like to help on the annual Rhubarb Festival on June 4th. Lots of positive and wonderful ways to participate. Now, let us worship together.
Come, those who feel worthy and those who feel not so. Come, all who are weary, bone tired, and any who feel spunky, and all those in between. Come, all with tender hearts from grieving, and those whose present feels mended and strengthened. Come, all with soreness and frailty in body, and those who are sprightly and unbounded. Come, all with secrets. Come, all with fear or anxiety. Come, all who live in the shadow of dread. Come, all who are curious, eager, excited, and hopeful. Sit here together now with these people in this place, all of us together, and may worship become us.
As Poppy helps me by lighting the chalice that symbolizes Unitarian Universalism, please read with me these words by UU Minister Annie Forster. Come we now out of the darkness of our unknowing and the dusk of our dreaming. Come we now into the twilight of our awakening and the reflection of our gathering. Come we now all together. May the sparks of our joining kindle our resolve, brighten our spirits, reflect our love, and unshadow our days. Come we now enter the dawning. Our first hymn is number 389. And the gray hymnal, the words will also be on the screen. The hymn is Gathered Here, and we'll go through it 3 times. Please stand as you are able.
Good morning. I'm just to the side of the podium because I want to be able to have my hands seen a little more. So Carl actually set me up perfectly for what I'm about to do, and we didn't even discuss it. So rituals have a lot of useful things that they do, and one of them is that they help us really get into the moment right now, right? If you go somewhere and when you go to that place, there's a ritual you do, one of the hopes is that it brings you right there, right? Here I am again doing this thing that I always do here. And so it helps kind of put you in that space and that energy. I'm gonna take that off too. So in RE, the programs that we do with kids, we have some rituals that we do. So I thought I would actually do the RE starting ritual with all of you. Those of you who have done stuff in RE will find this very familiar, I hope. Okay, so to start, when the kids come in, the very first thing we do to start it is we sit in a circle. So what I'd like you to do, as you are able, and this is an invitation, you can choose to not do it if you prefer, is turn your chair so that you're in little clumps of like 4 people, 3, 4, 5 people. If you want someone to turn your chair for you, we can help you. If you want to just go sit in another seat for a moment, you can do that. And if you want to just watch, totally fine. So why don't you take a moment to just go around and say your names, even if you think it's obvious. All right, so our wonderful ushers, Mike and Jean, are going to come around and give each group a bowl that has a few things in it. And if someone in your group could just be kind of the holder of the bowl for right now, that'd be good. If we were sitting on the floor, you would just stick it on the floor in the middle of all of you, but I don't want to make you all bend over for this whole thing. So stick it on a chair or someone can just hold it. This is not going to take a huge amount of time, so holding it should be okay. Can you bring a bowl to the gentleman behind me? Ronnie, you can scoot over if you want to do this too, or you can just watch. Okay. So when working with the really little guys, we don't use, well, I should say, I don't use the candles with flames, even though they look so much cooler. I just don't want to deal with thinking about it. So we use the battery operated ones that you have. And the way we decide who's going to light it by turning it on is the youngest person in the group is invited to light it. And if they don't want to do it, then you go to the next oldest and so on. So why don't you find someone in your group to light it? Oh yeah. This is actually youngest of years, not just youngest of heart. Too much competition if we get into that. So. Okay, so hopefully everyone has their chalice lit now, and it should be in the bowl, which is really the chalice, right? The other thing is your candle. So now we do our chalice lighting, and this is the part that Carl set me up for. So the RE chalice lighting, I'm going to say the words in just a moment, so I'm going to show it to you. You can kind of follow, and then we will all do it as a group. It has hand gestures that go with it. So the person holding the bowl might want to stick it down somewhere for just a second. So again, do this as you're comfortable. So the first thing I'm going to say is we are I'm facing you. We are Unitarian, Universalists. Okay, So we are Unitarian Universalists. We are a church of open minds, which many kids think are like antlers. We are a church of reindeer, of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. Okay, so now we all just do it. We are Unitarian Universalists. We are a church of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. So now I'm going to introduce the part exactly how I would with the kids. So now we're going to do joys and concerns. And what that is it's a time to share something you're excited about, or you're feeling good about, or something coming up, or something that happened to you that was nice, or a concern, something you're worried about, something hard or bad that happened. You can choose not to share at all. You could share one of each. So we go in a circle, and when we get to you, if you don't want to share, you just say pass. Once we've done the whole circle, we'll go to the people who passed and see if they want to share then, because sometimes there's some folks who take a little warming up and want to share at the end. Totally fine if you don't. And this is what the stones in the bowl are for. So I encourage you all to take one of the stones or gems, some of the kids call them, out of the bowl. So, and some people grab two, but you don't have enough for that, I don't think. So I'm going to model it. Let's see. I got to think for a second. I have a joy that I'm going to do both just to model examples. I have a joy that it is May. May is my birthday month and my mom's birthday month, and it also does feel like everything kind of opens up. So I really love May. I have a concern that I'm singing with my band again tonight for the first time in like months and months and months, and I'm kind of nervous, just health-wise. We're in a room with windows, but I'm a little nervous about it. So then I would take this, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in the bowl. We don't comment on each other's joys and concerns because it derails it very quickly. So if you want to talk to somebody about something they said later, you're free to do that. So now I encourage you to just find a person to start. When you are all done, if you could move your chairs back so I know you've completed it. I just have one last little bit to do, but before we do that, I'm just interested, and no judgment, how many of you would be interested in not necessarily doing the whole thing, but in turning to people at a time in worship and sharing joys and concerns again, ever? So, I don't know, a little over half, maybe. So then at this point, we would then do a book or do the activity, introduce whatever the thing is that is going to be kind of the main thing we're going to do. So I'm just going to tell you what the thing is that the kids are going to do, and that'll be it. So what I would say to the kids, I'd probably read a book. I often use stories to kind of lead into things, but then I'd say, one of the things we like to do is support other groups that are trying to get things done that really matter. And there is a group in Vermont called Migrant Justice. They are made up of farm workers who work on farms and people who support those people. And they are fighting to get Hannaford grocery stores and a lot of other places in New England to join an agreement called Milk with Dignity that gives workers' rights, farmers' rights, vacation, better housing. There's things that organizations that sign on agree to do for the people who give them their milk. So today in RE, we are going to make signs because right after service today at 11:30 in Middlebury at Hannaford, there is an action. May Day is, besides the start of a beautiful month, International Workers' Day. So it's a day that celebrates better rights for workers, which we're still working for, an 8-hour day. So if you're a person who has had an 8-hour day, you can thank the workers that have come before you and fought very hard for that. I probably wouldn't say that line to the kids. Anyway, so we're going to be making signs, and when we're done, we're going to come over while the grown-ups are still doing worship, and we're going to stick these in the foyer so that when worship is over, if they want to join the action at 11:30, they can grab a sign in the foyer. I will be there at Hannaford, and I hope that some of the grown-ups will, and kids, I hope some of you might be coming too. So that's what we do, and then we'd be off and running. So thanks for joining me in doing our ritual. The one that we do with older kids, the youth group, is a little different. Maybe I'll do that one with you sometime. And now I believe it's time for the offering.
As you know, each month we choose a group or an organization or some such doing good in our community or in the larger world to be our donee for this month, that month, to receive half of our weekly offering. On the first Sunday of the month, we spend a little more time than usual describing the donee for that month. And Neil Chippendale will introduce today the Hungarian UU Church Ukrainian relief efforts. Neil, thank you.
Thanks, Carl. So if we could put the map up, the first. So if you went to your phones or your computer, don't do it now, and you Googled Hungarian Unitarian Church Ukrainian Relief Fund, you would find pages and pages and pages and pages of hits, because across the United States, UU churches are sharing their plate for Ukraine. So it's happening everywhere. And we actually are in there because they got the words out of our newsletter. So we're actually about a month behind most of the churches that were and congregations that were doing it last week. So the big question that most people have is, okay, we're going to help Ukraine, and we're going to do that by sending money to the Hungarian Unitarian Church in Transylvania. Okay, why? Well, if you look on the map, there's a green area in the middle, and right in the middle of that green area is a city called, with the Romanian name of Cluj-Napoca. In Hungarian, it's Kolozsvár. In the Austrian German, it's Klausenberg, because every city and town in Transylvania has 3 names. It's got a Hungarian one, a Romanian one, and a German one. So just to the north of Cluj-Napoca, that area, I guess purple, that's Ukraine. So it's 100 miles from Cluj or Kolozsvár and gets you into Ukraine in a province called Transcarpathia. And so what's happening is the money, the headquarters of the Hungarian, which is not country, it's a language, the Hungarian Unitarian Church of Transylvania, their headquarters are in Kolozsvár, and they're collecting monies and they're getting materials and sending them up to there. In addition, they're also been taking some materials over to Odessa, and Odessa is over to the right on that picture, right on the Black Sea. It's about 250 miles away from Kolozsvár. So they're in a good central place. And I have some friends who came back that were over there doing Christian relief in Ukraine, and they came back and he said most of the supplies that are coming in people's cars, they're coming in vans. They're really not coming in on trains and trucks and things like that. They're coming in small quantities to help people there. In addition, most of that green area that's on that map, there's a lot of Unitarian villages. These are agricultural villages. Some of them have empty houses. And what they've done over the many years past is they have converted them into guest homes for visitors, people coming in to tour some of the beautiful countryside around there. So what they're doing, these Unitarian villages, they've opened up these guest houses to Ukrainian refugees. And it's mostly older people and women and children that are coming in, and they're housing them. Also in Kolishvar, there is a dormitory for the high school, because most of the villages don't have high schools. So the Unitarian kids go to Kolishvar to go to high school. And my church, or my congregation in Pennsylvania, the one that Julie and I were members of before we moved up here, we have a partner village in Transylvania, and we actually provided scholarship money to send those kids to that high school. We also contributed and raised funds to rebuild a dormitory for the kids, and we actually have a room in there which our church contributed to. So right now, those rooms, those dormitories are housing Ukrainian refugees. So this is kind of an important thing for us. So we do the next slide. So we're going to get yeah, here we go. So that's sort of a symbol. They don't use a chalice. So they got themselves a dove and a snake eating itself. I don't know the whole history of that, but on the left-hand side depicts what's called the Diet or Congress of Torda, which in 1557 gave the Unitarians, it gave them the rights to exist and to worship in freedom. This was the first edict of religious toleration that happened. This is the time Protestant Reformation, Catholic Inquisition, people were fleeing to the fringes. Transylvania was one of the fringes. So this Unitarian church, these congregations that are there have been there since the 1500s, and they have been worshiping in the same way since that time. The next one. Next slide. Okay, so there is a partnership. There's a partner church agreements. Many congregations have partner churches. And so we go there and we do pilgrimage and we do connections in there. Julie and I made our pilgrimage to Transylvania back in 2002. And we met people there. We stayed in villagers' homes. And interestingly enough, the home that we stayed in were the parents of the now Unitarian minister who's in charge of the relief effort. And he has a typically Hungarian name of Attila, or you might know it as Attila the Hun or whatever. But anyways, Attila Vargas, we scholarshiped him to high school. We scholarshiped him to seminary, and now he's a minister there and heading up this relief effort. And we're going to show a video. We don't have any sound, but I'm going to narrate it. But within that, yeah. All right, because see, I have a lot of pressure because there's a lot of time in the service, and he doesn't want me to spend much time on it, even though I personally think this is very important, and it's an important thing to me. But anyways, they're taking supplies, and I would really like you to donate as much money as you feel free to do. You can also designate that 100% of this or 75% of it go not to share the plate, but go directly to the effort. I have some of my friends that I spoke with and said that we were raising funds. So I actually came today with $1,500 to give to this that I got from, non-Unitarians. So hopefully you can give early now and also give over the next couple of weeks. So come with your checks, write it in the memo line so Chris knows where it's going to. And then we'll get the sound back somehow and show the video next week. Okay, thank you.
I really think, I've seen the video, and I don't want you to see it without sound. I think it's going to be fine. So every single one of you come back next week. Yes. Those of you here, please come forward with your offering while Ronnie plays music, which encourages generosity. And those Zooming, follow the guidelines on the screen.
I've changed the offering music today. Don't panic. It's okay. Number 404. What gift can we bring? What present, what token, what words can convey it? The joy of this day. When grateful we come, remembering, rejoicing, what song can we offer in honor and
Margie, do we have anything in the chat? Let me read my yellow card, Jordan, while you check that. It's from Marnie Wood. Governor Scott signed the Senate Bill 74 this week. It was approved during this legislative session. It has 3 important amendments regarding our state's Medical Aid in Dying Law Act 39. Marnie says, I serve on the board of Patient Choices Vermont and have been a strong advocate for every person's right of choice. If one has a terminal illness and happens to be within 6 months of dying, feel free to ask me questions, any questions you might have. Thank you.
We have one from Ann Christie online who says, this week I was fortunate to attend a 50th anniversary celebration of women's sports in my high school community, the result of Title IX. Attending were much loved old athletic teammates and coaches celebrating the lifelong benefits. Asked to see my 650-page documenting book.
In a week of living, there are milestones and passages, joys and concerns that, if unspoken, are in our hearts and minds. Let us enter into a brief time of silent meditation.
This reading is from The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. 4 months after he got engaged, Felix Barrett, a prominent London-based theater director, received a key in the mail and an envelope marked "To be continued." He heard nothing else for months. "It was blissful torture," he later said. "The whole world suddenly took on a heightened, hyper-real feeling, and everything was shrouded in mystery." Barrett was no stranger to mysterious experiences, but he was used to being in the driver's seat when they happened. He was the artistic director of Punch Drunk, an immersive theater company with interactive plays. In his New York City version of Shakespeare's Macbeth, titled "Sleep No More," your belongings are taken from you at the entrance, you are separated from your party, and you are given a white mask to wear for the duration of the show, a shot of liquor, and an invitation to explore 5 floors of an abandoned warehouse in Chelsea. Now the tables were turned on Barrett. After that first envelope arrived, he waited. Eventually, another letter arrived saying, "Now we can begin." A suitcase was delivered to him at work. Inside, he later told the New York Times, he found a tide table, map coordinates, and a small shovel. He followed the coordinates and found himself on the banks of the River Thames. There, he dug up a box full of photographs of words on a computer screen. Those photographs told him that if he completed a series of challenges, he would be welcomed into a secret society. For weeks, he would receive bizarre prompts from odd messengers, strangers, the words on a cat collar, letters in remote vacation spots. Each prompt included some kind of challenge that he would have to complete were he to enter this secret society. Barrett being Barrett, he obliged. He found himself doing half marathons and climbing between boats on ropes. Each individual challenge presumably took him one step closer to that secret society. Then suddenly, one day he was blindfolded, kidnapped, and taken to an old manor house where he was greeted by 30 men in hooded robes. They were his best friends. He was at the bachelor party of a lifetime, his own. Barrett's friends understood 2 things well in organizing his bachelor party. First, that a gathering starts long before guests walk through the door. The clock of the gathering starts, so to speak, from the moment a guest becomes aware of its existence. For Barrett, the moment he received the key in the envelope, his journey into the gathering had begun. And from that moment onward, his friends knew that they were hosting Barrett all the way to the actual gathering, and that how they hosted him would shape how he showed up to the gathering.
Our second reading is also from Priya Parker's book, The Art of Gathering, earlier in the book. I once visited a tea house in Kyoto, Japan, where I participated in a traditional Japanese tea ceremony to learn from their wisdom on gatherings. The tea master there told me of a phrase the 16th century Japanese tea master Senno Riku taught his students to keep in the front of their minds as they conduct the ceremony, Ichigo Iche. The master told me it roughly translates to, quote, "one meeting, one moment in your life that will never happen again," unquote. She explained further, "We could meet again, but you have to praise this moment because in 1 year, we'll have new experience and we will be different people and we'll be bringing new experiences with us because we are also changed. Each gathering is Ichigo Iche, and it can help to keep that in the forefront of our minds as we gather."
The third reading is called The Art of Community. 7 Principles for Belonging by Charles Vogel. We all want to be part of a group of people who share our values. It doesn't matter if we dress, behave, work, or consume similarly, or even whether we live in the same area. We want to believe that others value what we value and disdain what we disdain. Shared values are what attract us to a group in the first place. By understanding how a group develops and expresses values, a leader can help a community mature and grow. Values bind a community.
Makes me want to do something crazy that Ronnie has to figure out a way to accompany on the piano. And I bet he could. More about why I'm sitting here in just a moment. Tony Campolo was a prominent, popular sociologist who taught at Eastern Baptist College in Philadelphia. Was also known as a talented evangelical preacher who used to talk about ways that the social gospel in Christianity can be more readily applied in ways that are non-conforming to what Christians typically think of as ways to live out their faith. And he used to tell a story about one of the examples of that for himself in nonconformity. When he would get on these elevators in tall buildings in Philadelphia, he liked to be the last one on in the crowd and wait for the door to close behind him and then not turn around. He was the first one to express this. He would get a sheepish grin on his face and look at the people standing there awkwardly wondering what he was doing. And then he would say to everyone in the elevator, "I suppose you're wondering why I've called this meeting, aren't you?" And then he goes on to say that when the elevator door would open, he would check to see what the next floor was, and he'd run up the stairs, go to the place where the door opened again, and say, "You were talking about me, weren't you?" He's a man who was full of life and loved to think in ways that were contradictory to, he also would give change at toll booths for the people behind him and said it was worth $1.50 at the time to see the look on the face of the person behind him, trying to understand why someone else would give money to let them pass through. Fantastic guy. I feel like this is one of those moments of standing on an elevator looking at people who may wonder what it is I have to say about gathering when you all do it so well. I want to let you know that your reputation not only precedes you, but is well earned in the time that I've been able to spend just preparing for this gathering. I've witnessed firsthand the intentionality and the loving kindness, the care with details that go into such a thing as what you all are doing this morning. And as I was sitting in the chair near where Carl is sitting now, before the chalice was lit, I had the feeling that the better part of the gathering may already have happened, just from the laughter and the voices and all of the readying that goes on. So this is like preaching to the choir in the old colloquialism. But even the choir, I think, sometimes is helped to be not reminded, but in this case, I wanted to reflect back to you in the way that I just did, something that can sometimes become commonplace or be taken for granted. And as an outsider who has his whole life deeply been moved and touched by space and time and color for that matter, I'm a very sensitive soul. I came to realize finally to those things about our orientation in the world. And as one who is sensitive to those things, I think it's worthwhile sometimes for us to revisit why it is that we gather, how it is that we gather, and what it is that we inculcate and communicate in the ways and times that we do that. So that's in the 2 minutes that I have left, what I'm going to do. And I'm straddling the wishes of those who, like me, look at the clock and believe that there's no reason why we can't do things within 1 hour. And those of you whom I know, Carl, who think that it should go on as long as it needs to. If you like me and what I'm saying, you can invite me back and I'll expand on things again later. But it's such a beautiful day outside. We'll split the difference. As the person who's been so enamored with these things, I've been drawn to 3 books in particular lately that 2 of them had the readings for today. One is The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker, with whom I worked for a while when she was part of the Sustained Dialogue Campus Network in DC. She's now an international mediator with conflict and an expert on gathering. Charles Vogel, The Art of Community, 7 principles for how we build community. I'm happy to share that information later. And then this one, someone dropped off on my doorstep who let me know by that he knew who I was. The Power of Ritual by Casper Tukru, who is the person who came up, if you know about Harry Potter as sacred texts. He was one of the 2 people who started that from Harvard Divinity School. There's so much I could say, but what I'll say quickly is this. When I asked my family what made for a good gathering without their knowing that I was thinking about this moment, they immediately went to the things that many of us would. A good gathering is a time when people know what the focus is. They have something that they want to do together and they're in sync. Eleanor, my peacemaker, the youngest of them, said it's when there's peace and people are actually listening to one another, and that way they can work more effectively. But then I probed a little bit, those 2 in particular, the 2 daughters, I have twin 12-year-old daughters who went to the middle school activities night on Friday night, which they had low expectations for and were not sure they wanted to go, but they gathered themselves and a few friends and went. And 2 hours after I dropped them off, when I picked them up, they were ecstatic. They'd had a great time. The activities night was a success. And I said to Louisa and Eleanor, as I was thinking about this further, what was it that made that a good gathering? And Louisa said, well, they handed us glow sticks at the door. It was really dark and they had a fog machine on, so it was hard to see. And then they had all these activities. They had hired a company to come in and do a mini golf kind of setup. So it was miniature golf in miniature. You can imagine that. And then they had a whole table full of hot dogs. My children are vegetarian, but that still impressed them that there were hot dogs with all the fixins. And then another table with all kinds of candy and chips and things like that. There was a spread. And then they said in the other room, separate from that, if people wanted to, there was music and dancing. And everybody eventually went in there and they started doing these dances where they were together. And, longer reading for another time, the spirit of being in a room with other people, doing something all together is unlike anything. Ronnie was sharing, I hope it's okay, I can share the experience of being in a sound bath with a choral arrangement, a choir recently, and sitting nearby, and the healing, the elevated experience that is. You will already make the connection. I'm referring to this moment, to this time. And as the reading said, we may all come back again a week from now because the movie was promised with sound, but it won't be the same. Even if exactly the same people show up here 1 week from today, we will be different people because of what transpires between now and then. And it's worth noting that every moment is full of life, and life is full of death. And the closer we approach that, the richer our experience of it becomes. And in so doing, we acknowledge the holiness, the sacredness, the beauty, the grandeur, the simplicity, the multifacetedness of our being. And while uniformity is never the objective, unity can be. In our difference, experienced that way, we know oneness. And we tap into that miracle of sentience. And so I want to express gratitude for a community like this, that on a day like this, with so many other reasons in the world for us to be disillusioned and dissipated and disbanded, folks are here with one another, bearing witness to these realities in ways that have profound rituals, as simple as they may be, but that tap into and remind us to come back and to come back, which is the meditative practice, the coming back. Blessed be, may it be so. Amen.
All right, everybody, I'm going to call on a little help from some choir members now, because we're going to sing this last song in the round. So this half of the room is going to be the first part, and this half of the room is going to be the second part. And the choir are going to help you. And this is a little Hebrew round called Hinema Tov. The translation roughly is how good and how pleasant it is for people to dwell in peace together. So I hope you will join us in singing this as a round. And one quick note, it's divided into two kind of couplets, if you will. That's probably not an accurate usage of that term, but go with it. And each of them happen twice. So it's Hinema tovu manayim shevet ahim gam yahad. Repeat Hinema tov, and you repeat each of them twice. And we're going to do all of that 3 times, just to make it as confusing as possible. The great thing about rounds is that you can sing anything at any moment and it works. So go with that. If I had more time, I'd explain more, but that's all we've got today. Yes, everybody up. So this side is part 1 and the other side is part 2. So part 1 is going to sing the first part through twice, and that side just listens. Here we go. Ready, and repeat. Here comes the other part.
receive the benediction, the good word. Go forth into the world with gladness. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor all people. Love and serve one another, for inasmuch as you do, you participate in the divine. May graciousness and togetherness inhabit you all your days, today and always. Amen.